My son's sleepwalking became a regular occurrence after that first night, and each time, my husband would return him back to his bed without waking him up. Just as I was getting used to being woken up by this, I was startled awake in the middle of the night by something different. This time, it was not from my son staring at me, but from a loud crash. The sound was so loud that my entire family was woken up. My son came running into our room from his, and I could hear my baby crying in her bassinet, and my husband was jumping out of bed reaching for his metal bat, all in a matter of seconds. I too jumped out of bed, and instinctively picked up my son and ran to the baby's room where she was crying. My husband followed me, and swiftly checked the room for the cause of the startling crash. It was upon his search that he checked our daughter's closet, and found that the pole that hangs the clothes had collapsed. Our daughter's clothes weren't heavy in the slightest, and there weren't that many hanging up. So for the pole to collapse was very odd. My husband decided to continue checking our home for a possible intruder, because the idea that the pole fell on its own didn't make much sense, since it had stayed secure this long. I stayed in my daughter's room with my son, as my husband checked the rest of the trailer. When he returned to where we were, he came back with an even more confused look on his face. He then proceeded to tell me that the clothing pole in our bedroom closet and the one in our son's closet had also collapsed. Our minds were completely baffled, and we couldn't think of a logical explanation for what caused all the poles to fall. My husband hadn't found any other sign of an intruder either. I once again found myself unable to sleep as I racked my brain for some sort of explanation, but I couldn't find one. The next scary and strange thing to occur was another bump in the night. My family and I were sound asleep, when suddenly we were all woken up to the sound of a loud shatter. Again, my husband jumped out of bed and grabbed his metal baseball bat within seconds. I too jumped out of bed and followed behind my husband to gather the children into a safe room while my husband searched the house. After not finding an intruder, my husband came to me and told me to follow him into the kitchen. The children stayed in the room while I followed my husband. It was there that I found that the small window above the kitchen sink was shattered. There were also drops of blood on the windowsill, dripping down the inside of the kitchen wall. This window was too small for any adult to climb through, so we didn't understand why an intruder attempting to break into the house would choose to break this window. Also, this was the highest window in our home, because it was on a raised platform. Instead of trying to understand the person who broke our window, we just cleaned up the glass and blood and patched up the window with duct tape and a trash bag until we could have it fixed in the morning. My husband and I laid in bed still alert, just in case whoever had broken the window decided to come back, but nobody ever did. It wasn't until this final incident occurred that all of these strange occurrences began to tie together and make a bit of sense. One night, while my husband and I were sound asleep, we were awoken to the sound of a repetitive squeaking. Rather than just jumping out of bed this time, we both lay completely still, trying to make out the sound. That is when I realized that it was the sound of someone jumping on the bed. This was strange for two reasons. One, my daughter was a toddler at the time and could barely walk, let alone jump on a bed. And two, my son was at my father's house spending the night. Once my husband and I came to this realization, we jumped out of bed in the same fashion that we had many nights before. As we entered the hallway connecting all the rooms, sure enough, the sound was coming from our son's room. We slowly crept towards his bedroom door, and my husband carefully opened the door and turned on the light. To our horror, the room was completely empty. But that wasn't the scariest part. We found child-sized footprints embedded on my son's once smooth comforter. It was after this that there wasn't a doubt in our minds that our trailer was haunted. The jumping on the bed continued to occur whenever my son spent the night at my father's house, which was often because he didn't like sleeping in his room anymore. In addition, our closet poles collapsed many times more during our 4 years while living there. We even had the kitchen window shattered a few more times with the same blood trail. It's sad to think that a child's soul was possibly trapped there and left to haunt whoever lived there. However, I don't think the child was the only one haunting that trailer. There was the thing that tried to get my husband to kill our baby that first night, and whatever caused my son to sleepwalk and stare at my husband and I while we slept. I'm just glad my family is safe after everything we went through, but we'll definitely never forget what happened to us while living in that trailer.